In case you haven't heard, it's officially in Abercrombie summer. The A&F Vacation Shop has everything on your packing mood board. I desperately need their new one piece, the A&F Marina. It's strapless, so flattering, and paired with denim shorts will be my go-to beach outfit this summer. Finally, your suitcase isn't complete without finding that dress. You know, the one for the photo shoot. Abercrombie's boho dresses have that perfect beachy, romantic look. Make it an Abercrombie summer. Shop their newest arrivals in-store, online, and in the app.
Hello, and welcome to It's a Fandom Thing. I'm your host, Erin Marlowe, and each week I'm joined by a panel of guests to discuss all things fandom and pop culture, primarily from a female perspective. You'll find everything from fanfic, to cosplay, to Schitt's Creek, to Supernatural, and everything in between. So put on your favorite piece of fandom merch, set aside that fanfic that you're writing about your OTP, and sit back and enjoy this week's episode. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Pop Culture and Fandom News. I'm your host, Erin Marlowe, and on Friday's episode, we've had a change of plans. So we didn't really finish watching NewsRadio, and plus, you know, there's only so much Joe Rogan, like 2 minutes that you can take of that man. Even though it's not his podcast, he's not the main character on the show, still. That's a lot of Joe Rogan for any person to try and stomach. So we changed it up a little bit, and instead on Friday, Carla and I are going to be surprising each other with a comedy. We don't know what we've picked. It's going to be a very light episode of just like revealing it and why we picked it, and we'll ask each other a couple questions, and that's it. Yeah, so that's what we did. That's how we changed up how we're officially wrapping up Comedy Month. We do have one other episode this month, but I'll explain that on Friday as well. But joining me for Pop Culture and Fandom News, and also for Friday's Surprise Me With Your Comedy is our title. I don't know why, it just hit me. Surprise Me With Your Comedy episode is Carla from Okay Real Quick Pod. See, now I can say that. That's so exciting. Hi, Carla.
Hi, Erin. I'm so happy to be here.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm very happy and excited to finally have gotten that first hurdle out of the way, which is just recording and posting the thing.
Yeah, that's the biggest hurdle. So if people don't know, tell everybody what your podcast is about so they can check it out.
Well, thank you. Okay, Real Quick is about just exploring all the random topics and loose threads in my head, whether it's just weird thoughts that I have at 2 a.m, or if I'm guesting on a podcast and there's just one little straight thought that I want to really dive into that I don't get a chance to, I'm just going to throw it into the pod. So that's what it is, but it's going to be quick. So it's 10-ish minutes of me going on about whatever it is that my mind decides to talk about that day.
It's so exciting. I'm just so happy for you because the biggest hurdle really is getting that first episode out there.
Yeah.
When you start a podcast, that's the biggest hurdle. So,
yeah,
especially for indie podcasters, I think more than.
It's so true because you're doing everything yourself.
Yeah.
Nobody is editing it for you or telling you, oh, hey, maybe if you just watch a tutorial, they can give you a shortcut for the thing that you've been doing for the last 45 minutes.
And the funny thing is I never watched any of the tutorials. It'd be just something would come up and I'd be like, I'm just going to Google, how do I do this? And that's how I learned, for this. For you, it doesn't apply. But for separate audio tracks, before I found the one thing that I use now, but would be how do I mute this background noise on this other audio clip? And I learned that. And then I know I was with some other podcaster and you can do that. And I'm yeah, just do Command L. You select, Command L on a Mac, but I'm sure it's different. You just that, selecting multiple tracks and deleting a part and all of that kind of stuff. So there's all sorts of stuff that I have learned throughout that, I probably should have shared more with you, Carla, but I think it's just kind of after you've done it, you're oh, wait, there's that and that and that. but a lot of it is multiple track stuff. So I know that's a little bit different than.
Right. I mean, it's just me, and I'm not planning on having any guests simply because I want to talk about what I want to talk about and not like it's my selfish little treat. Because I have a backing sound, because I feel like with solo podcasts, you want to have like something at least in the background so it doesn't sound like an empty cave. Although that's basically what it is.
That's a good point. Yeah. Okay. Well, congratulations again. And please, everybody, go check out Carla's podcast, wherever you're listening to this podcast, except where I understand you're not on Pandora yet. So
Right.
I get to hold that over lots of people's heads. Okay, but we're going to jump into some pop culture and fandom news. So, Carla, what is one thing in fandom or pop culture that you're into right now?
Well, I just finished my top shows that I watch on, I guess it's the season finales of shows that I watch all together. Because I like to watch my stressful shows all in one go. Because then I can just freak out about them at the one time. It's basically a time management thing. So I watch 911, The Rookie, The Cleaning Lady, and Dr. Odyssey. And Cleaning Lady I haven't quite finished, but it's the most stressful show out of my little package deal of anxiety on a screen. I was very pleased with the season finale of 911. The season finale of The Rookie was incredibly underwhelming and kind of boring. I think it's a series finale of Dr. Odyssey, because I don't think it's going to be picked up again, which thankfully, because that show sucked. It was so promising, Erin. It was so promising. It looked like it was going to be like a really interesting show. Like, don't bother. Don't bother. I will just tell you everything. Like, we can sit down and I can tell you everything about it. And be like, wow, I am so glad I didn't do that. I'll be like, you're welcome. But yeah, I was just, oh my God, I'm glad it's over. And the Cleaning Lady, this season, I was hoping for, I guess, something different than what we got. But it also goes back to last season where they killed off a character that I thought would have made for a very interesting story going forward. And then they didn't read my brain, and I guess, they're suffering for it. But, you can't be amazing at storytelling. With like my dozens of successful TV shows under my belt.
They're suffering for it. That makes me laugh. You idiots.
Had you only listened, you could have really dominated the airwaves, and yet.
Yeah.
But that's fine. Whatever. But anyway, yes, I got through my slate of anxiety TV.
Awesome. So I was trying to decide between two movies. Originally, it was going to be one movie, and then I watched another movie last night that I'm still not sure entirely how I feel about it. And I probably, if anyone will be on it, if not, I'll just do a brief little episode just myself talking about it, especially if nobody signs up for Pretty Woman. But anyway, I decided to go with Baby Girl, which was the movie that came out last year starring Nicole Kidman, where she is the executive, like a high power working woman, I guess is the best way to put it. And, there's lots of explicit sexual content in this. I just want to give a huge warning for that, because this starts with, and Nicole Kidman is very vocal, very, very vocal. So just take that as you will. If somebody was outside of, I was watching this alone, and Fergie was downstairs. I turned it on and started, and she left. She just left. So if you were to hear this and you're in a different room, you might think someone's watching porn. I just want to make sure everybody knows this, because I cannot imagine sitting in a movie theater watching this movie, to be honest, parts of it, because it is very explicit. But anyway, so Nicole Kidman plays a high-powered executive, and she has never, so I'm going to be talking about sexually explicit stuff here for a second. She has never had an orgasm with her husband. They've been married for 17 years or 20 or something. I mean, longer than that, like a long time. And, her husband is played by Antonio Banderas, and she has two daughters. And this group of interns comes into her office, and one of them is Samuel, played by Harris Dickinson. And she had happened to see him on the street earlier that day in New York, and there was this dog off leash running towards Nicole Kidman, running towards lots of people, attacking people. And he just called this dog over, calmed the dog down instantly. And there was something about that attracted her immediately to this guy. And they have this little back and forth, and he starts saying very inappropriate things you would never say to your boss. And then they start having it's a pretty vanilla BDSM relationship, I want to say. If you're worried about the BDSM part of this, don't be. I will spoil, there's like absolutely no spanking in this movie, no physical stuff in this movie as far as that goes. But they start a BDSM relationship, but they're both novices, and you can tell like neither of them have done this. And that's why I didn't so much have a problem with the fact that there wasn't too much until after they'd already played a little bit. There wasn't too much talk of consent, but then they have this whole scene where Harris Dickinson, so I'm spoiling a little bit here, sorry, but I just want to get this out, where Harris Dickinson says, this is all about consent. And so we have to, and she's like, did you just Google that? And he's like, no, we have to have a mutual consent here that I can tell you what I want you to do and you have to do it kind of thing, but you have to consent to this. So you have to say it. He's like, we can't do anything until you actually say this to me. And so then she does, and they start playing, and there's lots of course, things that happen. But this movie was so interesting to me because I have never really seen a movie explore a woman's sexuality in this way, where it's so consuming for her once she finally accesses that part that she has always wanted to access her whole life. And how even though it frees her and changes her, it also, there's a part of her that kind of loses herself. And so it's interesting. And there's this whole dynamic with her coworker, Esme, played by Sophie Wilde, that I'd love to do a whole, I'd love to talk about that. I don't want to get into it too much, but there's a lot of undercurrents of racism in that relationship. And so that would be, something I'd want to talk about with this movie, because there's so much to talk about with this movie, but it would spoil so much of it, like certain scenes and the way certain characters relate to each other. And just this character of Romy, Nicole Kidman's character, and just her unraveling, and then the final scene, and then all this stuff in here. And I was so hesitant to see this movie because of the huge age difference between Harris Dickinson and Nicole Kidman. But you know what? It actually didn't bother me like I thought it would. And I think it's because it never feels like she is taking advantage of him. It feels like a real equal relationship, and almost like she constantly is saying in the movie, I don't want to hurt you. You're so young. I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to hurt you. And he's like, why do you think you could hurt me? That's not who is really vulnerable in this situation. It's you. I could take everything from you in one sentence.
Wow.
Which is very true, because, she's doing something very inappropriate, and she's cheating, and, all this stuff. It's a really interesting character study, and a study about women's sexuality. And this could not have been done by a man in the same way, because Nicole Kidman is literally naked, and then also figuratively naked in this movie. And the sexual stuff she has to do, because it's her pleasure that you're exploring. You're not exploring his pleasure necessarily. You're exploring her pleasure. And so to do that, you have to, I think, have a woman behind the camera, because I just think it could have gone into a very weird place if they didn't. So Helena Regin, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your last name, wrote it and directed it. And if you don't know, Nicole Kidman has made a promise, and she actually stuck to it, unlike certain people, that she would work with more female directors than anyone, and she's stuck to it. It's incredible. We're going to talk about it soon on one of these episodes, because I think that says a lot about her character, that she's like, no, I'm going to work with a lot of women, majority women. And she's done that. It's incredible how she stuck to that. And it shouldn't be that hard. But
Right.
Natalie Portman, who stood up there on a stage and called out all of the directors being nominated being male, and
Doesn't really
She's
work with women.
Yeah. But Nicole Kidman has done that. So yeah, it's on Max, HBO Max. Can't believe I just did that. It's because they're switching their names, so I'm just like, I'm gonna give you all the Maxes I can. So it's on HBO Max, but once again, triggers for light BDSM. I mean, there's a little bit of humiliation kink, I guess, but it's so light and a lot of him telling her what to do. But it is so light that honestly, I think if you're very new to watching anything with BDSM, I think you'd be okay with it. But lots of sexual content, like tons of sexual content.
So basically,
yeah.
like, it's a headphones on, screen away from other faces kind of movie. Like, you don't really want to watch this on a plane and, like, have people walking by and seeing your screen.
No, and I remember when it was out and there'd be like people saying, I saw this with my mom. I'm like, oh my gosh, that would have been so uncomfortable.
No. That would have been so awkward for everybody.
Yeah, that would have been like.
Oh God, I forget what movie it was. And I was in my late 20s. I went to see a movie with my parents and it had like this very, very sexy sex scene. And I'm sitting there watching it and I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like looking dead forward, not looking at my parents' faces at all. And it was like a solid like 15 minutes before I could even turn in the general direction. Because I was like, why? No.
Yeah, I remember I saw Under the Tuscan Sun with Diane Lane. I don't know if you ever seen that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of sex in that movie. And I saw that with my mom and my grandma. That was uncomfortable.
Yeah, no kidding. Holy crap. That's like all of the things that you don't want to watch. Like, that's all the people that you don't want to watch that kind of movie with.
Yeah. I know, especially my grandma. I'm like, I can't believe I'm sitting here watching this. I mean, my mom too, but my grandma, I'm like,
yes. No, grandma can't know that I know about sex.
Okay, well, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about one thing that is making us feel like a good girl or making us feel like naughty, naughty girls.
Whoa!
I had to. We'll be right back.
Have you ever met a single person in your life that enjoys paying taxes? No, no one does. If you can't sleep at night because you have a huge problem with the IRS, I've got some free advice for you. This service is strictly limited to individuals that owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes. And if you qualify, we can guarantee that you won't be writing a big fat check to the IRS, or our services cost you nothing. The first 100 people that call today will get a free tax consultation worth $500. Stop worrying about your IRS problem. We can help you, we promise. Call the tax doctor right now. I mean right now, to learn more.
800-281-7048. 800-281-7048. 800-281-7048. That's 800-281-7048.
Okay, so Carla, what is one thing in pop culture or fandom that you're into or not? I broke it. Let me just tell you about the one thing that's making me very, very happy. That you're excited about, etc. You know the drill.
I know. Yeah, it's nothing particularly sexy or spank-worthy, just general stuff. I was trying to decide whether to go on a rant about HBO Max realizing their mistake and coming back to the HBO Max instead of trying to like force, trying to make Max happen, which had never happened. And I'm glad that they came to their senses, but that's not what I'm gonna go with. I am gonna talk about NewsRadio a little bit, and that's because I'm looking at how the relationship between Dave and Lisa. And now, mind you, okay, I was watching it on, what was it, Pluto maybe?
Yeah.
Okay, on Pluto. And Pluto only had the first 3 seasons. So I was like, wait, where am I supposed to watch the other 2 seasons? It didn't matter. It didn't matter for this particular thing. So Dave and Lisa, their relationship, first of all, I really liked that we didn't have to go through the whole will they, won't they thing, because they immediately did. It went straight there. And it was actually like a really fun relationship to watch. And I enjoyed their banter. I enjoyed how, Beth kind of gets roped into keeping the secret. Like there isn't a speculation of whether they're going to get together. It's just, it's happening. But what I didn't like was the fact that Lisa was clearly positioned to be the person who took the job that was actually offered to Dave, the station manager job. And she's very clearly qualified for it. She's like overqualified for it, probably, but she just doesn't get it. She doesn't get the job. It goes to Dave. And I think everybody acknowledges, yeah, you probably should have gotten it. But then it gets kind of swept under the rug. Like they talk about it for a hot second and then it's swept under the rug for the rest of the show. And it really bothered me because it's so often that we watch, and I think it's gotten better since then, but so often that I go back and watch a show and I come across something that didn't bother me at the time because it's, for the sake of the dynamic of the characters. The dynamic of the characters was great. I really loved that. But for that to happen, Lisa kind of got stepped on. And like, it didn't need to happen. They didn't need to do that at all. There was no reason. They could have found other ways to create tension between the characters that didn't involve Lisa being kind of ripped off of a job that she had clearly earned. So, and this show it's an older show. It's from like the 2000s, early 2000s, maybe?
I think it's the 90s. It's the 90s,
okay.
Actually, yeah.
Oh, that's right, because it's 30 years old. It's not. It's 30 years old. I'm not having a crisis about it at all. So it's from 1995 or so. It makes kind of sense for the times, but it still sucks. I think that especially Maura Tierney, the way that she played Lisa was so good. I think that she made her so much more. She wasn't like just a shrill heartbeat of a person that I think they wanted Lisa to be. She was a very capable person who really worked hard and deserved better treatment by her boss than she got. So I think like that's the thing that kept bothering me in the back of my mind. Well, I was enjoying most of my rewatch, except for, like you mentioned, the Joe Rogan part, which, by the way, he was a terrible actor. Why did I ever think he was great in that role? I think it's because I thought he was cute. I think I just forgave his terrible acting because of that. But yeah, like going back and watching it, I'm like, I can't get it out of the back of my mind that it bothers me so much. And in addition to that, the way that they barely bothered writing Catherine, because you have a fantastic Candy Alexander playing Catherine, and they do nothing with Catherine. She's just there to like be in meetings and say something quippy and then go back into the shadows. Like she goes back into the booth and you don't hear from her for the rest of the episode. They gave more interesting stuff to Matthew and even Joe, who went from being an electrician to being a sportscaster, than to Catherine, who I don't even know if she was an interesting character because they wrote so little for her to do. And I completely see why the actress left. She was probably like, why am I even here? It just seemed like such a waste of her time. So, I mean, but yeah, like those were my little rants about NewsRadio.
You're like, since we're not doing the episode, I have to get them out.
I'm just gonna, I didn't devote 3 seasons worth of watching to not say this. And I mean, I did watch the entire, well, most of the entire series when it first aired, because I think when Candy Alexander left, I was like, I don't know that I'm all that interested in watching. And I did come back like everybody else did after Phil Hartman died, and how is the show going to address it? And I think that they addressed it in a very NewsRadio kind of way, and it was fitting for the show. Yeah. Anyway, so I watched NewsRadio. Those were my thoughts.
Yeah, it's very much, and it's not an excuse at all, but that show is very much a product of its time. And I think with the relationship, I think, Dave Foley, I think that the reason they cast him in that part is because then you could overlook certain aspects of this character that actually aren't very good.
Yeah.
He's actually not that great a person in a lot of respects, but they cast him because then you kind of look at him like that nice, quote unquote, nice guy. And
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
he's an adorable little guy. It's easy
Yeah.
to kind of be like, oh, he's not that bad. Look at him. He's like a little mannequin boy in children's clothes. How adorable.
Yeah. A mannequin boy.
He's a little mannequin doll boy. Yeah.
It's true. Yeah. Okay. So I just want to call it that, horror is my favorite genre. I love horror so much. But as part of Final Destination, Bloodlines, as part of their media and their promotion and their, they were doing some great things. Like they were had a logging truck that was driving by that said Final Destination on. They had a bunch of things that were actually kind of cool little marketing stuff. But they did this thing, and I guess Moth said that a lot of the people looked like they were moms of influencers. So it's probably set up, and probably people actually did know what they were going to go see. It's just the idea behind it that bothers me. But all of these mothers supposedly went to a screening of what they thought was going to be a romantic comedy, and it turned out to be Final Destination Bloodlines. And so they showed all these clips of these moms watching this. And I know a lot of people thought this was funny and genius marketing and all of that. I just don't find this stuff funny because horror is not a genre for everyone. My mom can't even watch horror trailers. Like, we've gone to a movie that, this is another thing I think needs to change. If you're going to a movie that has nothing to do with horror, and most people sitting there might not watch horror movies, don't put a horror movie trailer in front of those. It drives me nuts because I love the genre, but my mom can't even, I'll be like, okay, Mom, you got to shut your eyes. You can't. And then I'll tell her when she can, open her eyes again. And she can't even stand hearing it. So if I were to have done this to my mom would have been traumatized, literally traumatized, because people who are not into this genre are not going to have fun sitting there when they thought they were going to see a romantic comedy, especially if it had been my mom. My mom loves romantic comedies so much. She just loves romance films. My mom sits there and is obsessed with Hallmark movies. So, that's what she loves to watch, is stuff that will make you feel good and make you happy and all of that. And so if I had done that to her and she thought she was going to be sitting there and having a good time, and then I'm like, surprise, get stressed for a while. Yeah, she would have rightfully been pissed. And I just think this is so stupid to do this. And I see people doing this to their family members where they haven't consented to watching this stuff, and you're going to surprise them. I'm not going to name this person, but there was a big horror content creator who surprised her family last Christmas. And who knows, they might have already known. This could have been set up, but it's the fact of doing it and presenting it this way, where she supposedly surprised her family with watching on Christmas the latest Terrifier movie. Now, this to me is even worse than this, because Terrifier, I don't even think a lot of horror fans can watch Terrifier. That's a totally different, that's extreme gore and I like those movies, but I do not think those movies are for everybody. And now I hate the creator of them because he's such a dick, but I love the guy who plays Art the Clown, is awesome. But that was so disgusting to me and so despicable to me. And so many people in the horror community embrace this and think it's so funny. And thinks it's so funny. And I'm like, this is not funny. This is not okay. It's not cool to do this.
No, and even as a horror fan, because I love horror movies, but there are some days where I'm just not in the headspace for them. And if I were if somebody had told me, hey, let's go see a romantic comedy, and my mind was on that track, and I was not psychologically up for a horror movie, I would have been very upset. So I don't understand why people think that that's funny. It's not. It's if a horror fan goes to see a horror movie and they end up getting tricked into watching a rom-com, I think that's less heinous than the other way around. Because one of them is designed to make you feel very heightened things, The other one is just, here, enjoy this thing. It's so messed up.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, I mean, I've gone to a lot of those mystery screenings at the Alamo, and the last one I went to was the Jane Austen Has Wrecked My Life or whatever, which I'm not a Jane Austen person. So, but I really think people who are fans of Jane Austen would really like that movie. It was okay. It felt long for a 90-something minute movie. I was like, oh my God, this movie is just dragging. But that's the way I feel about most Jane Austen stuff. So that to me was not what I was hoping for. But I went in there knowing it was going to be a surprise. But I will say, even though a lot of people have been speculating that it might be Clown in a Cornfield, I can understand that even though people are going there for a surprise, that at least they were notified it was going to be R-rated, that might be a little bit upsetting if you're going there. Because there were this group of women behind me that were so excited that it was this movie. So I think if it had been Clown in a Cornfield, they might have been a little bit less excited. I would have been thrilled, but I would totally understand if they would have been like, nope, I'm out of here. Yeah, and the 30-minute intro really gave away that it was like, so it was all these people, because that movie, the Jane Austen one, is French with some English, but it takes place like she goes to there's a writer's retreat that's Jane Austen's old house or whatever. I don't know. Sorry. Obviously, this movie stuck with me. And so the whole 30-minute Alamo intro was just people singing French songs, like just people
Oh my God.
in French. And I'm like, okay, well, this definitely isn't Clown in a Cornfield.
That would have been a very interesting way to introduce Clown in a Cornfield. Just gonna have like people randomly singing French tunes.
Because usually it'll give it away, like, except for when I saw EFIS, which is the baseball one, the first one that I saw. And basically the intro gave nothing away for that. And then the second one was the one about the game show, about, pressure luck and the contestant that like figured out the board. And before that was all these 80s commercials. And that was pretty cool.
That does sound pretty cool.
And so I was like, okay, so it is that movie. And then for Drop, it was all of these like old dating profiles from the 80s, like those ones that would be on the, hi, I'm so-and-so. It was hilarious.
Like those recording ones that it's like,
yes.
Hi, my name's Jed. I live in a farm.
Yeah, some of them were so creepy. I was like, oh my gosh. I hope people like looked into this person because whoa.
Right?
So anyway, all that to say, please don't do this kind of stuff. Like, I think the ones that have been publicized and people see, I think very clearly, I'm sure these people actually knew what they were watching, what they were going to be end up watching. But then I think this gives people ideas that this is fun to do. This is not a fun thing to do. Don't do this to people. Horror is not for everybody. And, just be kind.
Seriously, be kind. Rewind your ideas of thinking that this is a good one.
I recently, because it'll be coming up, I was a guest on Great Pop Culture Debate talking about the best John Waters movie, and it was so much fun. Mainly because I just loved the panel, and there's someone on there that knows John Waters, and that made it even more fun. But we were talking about Serial Mom, of course, which that's my absolute number one favorite John Waters movie. And I remember how cathartic, and it's still cathartic, the scene where, spoilers for Serial movie from the 90s, where Kathleen Turner's character, who's the killer, kills the woman with the leg of lamb. She first grabs a knife, and she's like, nope. She grabs a leg of lamb, and she kills this woman who is like such a, and kills her, and she's watching Annie. The woman's watching Annie, and so Tomorrow, they're singing Tomorrow, and she's singing it while she's killing her with a leg of lamb. And this woman never rewound her videotapes because Kathleen Turner's character's son works in a video store. And that was always a frustration working in a video store. And so she's done killing her. There's blood all over the TV, and she's like, and rewind. And it's so great. But that is not a movie I would surprise people with who can't handle any kind of horror or gore or anything like that, because it is basically a horror movie, but
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to take another quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about how media CEOs in 2024 made way too much fucking money while their workers didn't. Or they laid off people, So we'll be right back.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, is telling everyone, let's face it in therapy. By talking or texting with a supportive, licensed therapist at Talkspace, you can face whatever is holding you back, whether it's mental health symptoms, relationship drama, past trauma, bad habits, or another challenge that you need support to work through. It's easy to sign up. Just go to Talkspace.com and you'll be paired with a provider, typically within 48 hours. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule. Plus, Talkspace is in-network with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. Make your mental health a priority and start today. If you're not covered by insurance, get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com and enter promo code SPACE80. That's SPACE80. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com and enter promo code SPACE80.
Okay, so in a recent article in Variety from May 15th by Brent Lang and Todd Spangler, they were talking about the media CEO pay packages in 2024. The Air Up There is what it's titled, and it's about top execs kept raking in the bucks last year, even as many of the companies they led struggled to stay aloft. And I just wanted to quickly, before we dive into this, go over the CEOs that they talked about, how much money they make compared to what the average salary was of an employee at this company. So we'll start with Disney. Bob Iger, who is the CEO, in 2024, his compensation was $41.4 million, which was up 31% from last year. Median employee compensation is $55,111. So the pay ratio to the median employee is 746. Absolutely ridiculous. The board gave him a $7.2 million bonus because they gave him credit for releasing Deadpool and Wolverine, which the family-friendly brand enthused was the highest grossing R-rated film ever. So that's all because of him. Obviously.
Nobody else was involved in that.
Nobody else, yeah. Netflix, which a couple weeks ago, of course, we talked about the lovely Ted Sarandos and Greg Peters are the co-CEOs. And Ted's compensation was $61.9 million, up 24.3%. Greg's was $60.3 million, up 50.2%. Median employee compensation, at least this one is in the six digits, is $215,503. So it's $287 and $280 for the pay ratio. Warner Brothers Discovery, which I just want to say, one of the people that shared this article was laid off by this company. And yet this is what the CEO makes. And they were laying off a bunch of people. David Zaslav, who's the CEO and president, $51.9 million, up 4.4%. The median employee compensation, $130,316. Comcast co-CEO Brian Roberts, $33.9 million, which was down. So these ones are down 4.5%. Michael Kavanagh, president, $28.25 million, which was down 4.5%. Median employee compensation, $89,237, and that's a pay ratio of 380. And Fox Corp, Lachlan Murdoch, who's the CEO and executive chair, his compensation was $23.8 million, which was up 9.3%. The disgusting Rupert Murdoch, the chairman emeritus, his compensation was $21.2 million. That was down 7.7%. The median employee compensation, though, $89,068. So yeah, $267 there for the pay ratio. And then Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, his compensation was up 18% at $74.6 million. Median employee compensation is $114,738. That's a pay ratio of 650. And finally, the worst of the worst, in my opinion, as far as the pay ratio, even though he doesn't make as much as these other people, it's still, to me, this is gross to me, but Andy Jassy, who's the CEO of Amazon, compensation was $1.6 million, which was up 17.6%. The median employee compensation is $37,181.
Wow.
That to me is the worst, only because even though like the pay ratio is just 43, it's still the worst because that is like impossible if you have a family and anything like that to live off of that low of a median salary. And you're doing probably more than he is doing. So we hate all these people.
I think
We hate
that's
this.
pretty clear.
Yeah. So we're not in favor of this. So your thoughts on all of this?
It's absolutely ridiculous that these people make so much money. Not only that they make so much money, but that they get raises in the tens and more percent for not doing nearly as much work as their employees do. And in the case of Amazon, it's absolutely exploitative because the conditions in which Amazon workers work are terrible. They're denied bathroom breaks. They're denied, proper time to rest and to have lunch. There was a post, I think, on Reddit that I saw recently that had there's kind of like a rivalry between the people who sort items into buckets and then people who pick them for orders, because the people who put them into the buckets don't always sort it correctly, and it's sometimes like a mess. And then somebody brought up a good point in the comments saying, well, yeah, but like, how much time do they get to do it? Like, they have to maintain a certain amount of measurable productivity, otherwise they get punished. So it's like, yeah, absolutely. Okay, I can see why somebody would just throw some stuff in a bucket and be like, okay, it meets the quota for my productivity, good enough. So, and in the article it says, CEOs for entertainment companies, especially, they have to do so much. They have to be the face of the company. They have to go and be charming and present the things to the Wall Street investors. It's like, yeah, and like, I'm sorry, I don't see how that's any harder than the people who in the world of media, like the writers who have to go through, drafts and notes and all of these things, and the people on the crew who do really intense, often difficult physical labor on very little rest, because the actors if the actor's pulling 16 hours, the crew is probably pulling more because they have to get there first, and then they have to break down after. So it's not like I have absolutely no sense of sympathy for CEOs who only make a few $1 million. It's preposterous that you're making that much at all. The more that I think about it, the more that I'm like, okay, why do we have such disparities in payment at all? The idea that some labor in a particular field, that some labor is worth more than other labor. Okay, but tell me why. Like, break it down for me into reasons why this person is getting paid so much more when they are doing less, and their participation in the outcome of your project. Okay, could this have been done without the work of the other people that you're paying significantly less? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I just, the whole universal basic income should be a thing. But in the meantime, people should just be paid enough to live. Getting paid $30,000 something as an Amazon worker is not enough to sustain, forget about a family, just yourself. I don't know of any city where you can live off of that amount of money whether you're renting or own property. Because first of all, how are you going to afford property? And second of all, if you're paying rent, so much of your money is going to rent that, how much of it can actually go to food? How much of it can actually go to clothing? And even beyond the basic human needs, what of it can go to entertainment, to things that like enrich your life? Because we're not machines. We shouldn't be expected to just work. we should be allowed as a right to have time to ourselves, to recuperate, to restore, to just have fun. CEOs get plenty of that. CEOs get so much vacation time, and because of their compensation, they can buy, like, oh, I'm sorry, it's a 1-yacht year, children. Like, daddy didn't get enough of a bonus this year to buy you each a yacht, so you're going to have to share the one again. And then, daddy, not 1 yacht again. It's like the differences in the hardships are so stark.
This industry is really, it's in danger of going away, to be quite frank. It is in such dire straits. And so when you hear about all these people making so much money when there are no jobs for a lot of people in the industry. There are people that are casting directors. There are people that are makeup artists or that haven't worked in a long time, like over a year, some 2 years, and a lot of these CEOs also were so pissed about the strikes that they kind of are getting, I think, revenge on some people. And then you also have the danger of the fact of who is in charge right now in our government, because they want to have a part of every industry, including this industry. And they have put in charge people that are disgusting, horrible human beings like John Voight. And so really the goal of the administration that we have right now and the people that support that administration is to get rid of the 40-hour work week and increase it. Get rid of any time we have to have fun, work off of our labor, and then make more money off of other people's labor so they can buy more stuff for themselves. And, that's why you look at people like Bill Gates recently said. Bill Gates has this new plan where he basically wants to give practically all his money away within this next time frame. He's giving all his money away to do things to make the world a better place, and with the Gates Foundation and everything. And I'm not saying this person is a perfect person, but to me, I mean, that's how someone who has a lot of wealth should act, where he's like, I don't want to die with this amount of wealth. And yeah, I know, Gayle King, you said recently on the morning show, I bet his kids are pissed. Yeah, but
they probably are doing fine though. Like, I'm not so worried about the Gates kids.
But that's an amazing thing that I think more billionaires and millionaires should follow is, what are you really going to leave behind? Because money is not going to go with you when you die. You're not going to be able to take it with you, no matter what your belief system is. It's not going with you, and that will not matter. And especially if you are someone who is supposedly a Christian or follows or believes in Jesus or believes in even the teachings of Jesus, Jesus would be disgusted by this. I mean, Jesus was not about money. Jesus did not like money this way. Thought it was kind of a sin to be this flippin' greedy, as people starve and people are murdered in a genocide and all this stuff, to give yourself these huge bonuses for work you didn't even do. Meanwhile, you have people working really hard, risking their lives to bring, literally, some of these people are risking their lives to bring you the entertainment you love.
Yeah.
And not even getting anywhere close to what a CEO who has to go and schmooze people is making.
You have to go and talk to people. I don't like talking to people either, but I also don't expect to be paid millions upon millions to go talk to people. Like,
yeah, it's, and it's just sad to me. We're nowhere near turning to closer to universal basic income. That's like, sadly, we need a real revolution to have that happen. Yeah. Like a real revolution, and I don't think most of us are prepared for that. So, yeah, it's just, ending on a very depressing note. But sadly, it's true. But I think it's important to call out these people and not like celebrate this. Like, there was someone in the comments of this article like, well, CEOs work too. Like that whole thing of what you're doing. And I just, everybody's like, fuck off. Yeah.
Oh my God. Like, the thing is, nobody's saying that they shouldn't be paid anything. They just shouldn't be paid this much. Like, and the thing with Bill Gates is like, it's all good and well, but he also accumulated all of that money. And as he went, he could have been dispersing it to people within his company, the Microsoft employees who are probably his age and may or may not still be working because they have to. Sure, they could have used that generosity 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, and a lot of people pointed that out, but then there were a lot of people that are in that industry that were like, well, actually, Microsoft, and I don't know the facts on this, but a lot of people were like, most people in this industry would kill to work at Microsoft because apparently they pay a lot better. Apparently. I don't know the whole truth behind that, but apparently, like, the starting is, I know it's 6 figures, but I'm not positive what they said it was. Once again, I haven't looked into that, so I don't know for sure. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that even though he is doing a good thing, that's a very, very valid criticism of it, is, well, what about, your employees and everything like that? So,
or even giving it to the community, like,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
If his employees, hopefully it's true and his employees were well taken care of during the time, at least, that he was directly overseeing stuff. But I don't know. That money could have gone somewhere where it would have benefited somebody.
Yeah, no, it's all very good points. Yeah, and I do appreciate, though, that he did say outright that Elon Musk is responsible for a bunch of deaths now, because deaths caused by complications or from AIDS because of cutting off funding. And so, and also, really, people should be like the founder of Ben and Jerry's, one of the co-founders. And yes, as it was pointed out to me, I know they don't own the company anymore. They sold it, but that company is still the same. If you ever follow them on social media, they are using their platform to call out a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I feel comfortable enough to be like, hey, eat more Ben and Jerry's.
Yes.
Because of what the co-founder got arrested, calling out a genocide and calling out the fact that we are cutting Medicaid to go and kill children in other countries. I mean, that's what we are doing, to help pay to fund a genocide. And he got arrested. But he's using his platform because he is a rich white man, and he's using that because he knows. He knows. And all these people are like, I'm never eating Ben and Jerry's again. I'm like, well, I'm eating more Ben and Jerry's.
Like, fine, give me your Ben and Jerry's budget. I'm happy to fill that gap.
Yeah. So be like that. Be like the co-founders of Ben and Jerry's. So be like those people. Be like Ben and Jerry's, who on 420 made this whole post about how, yes, we should be legalizing pot, but remember that while you're legalizing that, there are people that are still in jail that should not be in prison for this, and all of that we've got to, the equality, and the fact that now that it's legalized, majority of people making tons of money on are white people, and the racism involved in that. And so even though they might not still own the company, technically they are still the face of the company, and the company is still very much a political company. So yeah. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode of Pop Culture and Fandom News. So thank you so much, Carla, for joining me. So once again, if you want to remind everybody where they can find your new podcast.
Yes, thank you. You can find OK Real Quick Pod wherever you found this podcast, except for maybe Pandora. I don't know yet. I submitted the thingy, so I don't know whether it'll be accepted. But I don't know. Take a chance. Go look. You can find our social media, anywhere the social media exists. Look for us. You may or may not find us. That's between social media and God. But look for us anyway. I will say that I did try to create an Instagram account that didn't work out. So maybe just don't look for us there. And as for me, my art, my musings can be found on Instagram and TikTok at Carla Temis, or my website, carlatemis.com. That's CarlaTemis.com.
Awesome. Thank you. And like I said earlier, Fergie the dog, who loves watching TV, could not watch Baby Girl. I think she's like, this is too much for my delicate puppy ears.
I know exactly what it was. She was embarrassed to watch something so sexual with her aunt in the room.
Yeah, probably.
That's what it was. Oh my God, poor thing. She's like, I'm out of here.
She's like, let's watch people getting murdered. I don't really feel like watching like a porn with you, which is not a porn, but
Poor Fergie was just embarrassed, Erin.
yeah. You'll be like, you can come back down when it's over. She went upstairs and I'm like, okay, bye. But she does like watching horror movies, true crime, and Abbott Elementary. And you can watch her on TikTok at Schroeder and Fergs. That's SCHROEDERANDFERGS. It's long, but it's worth it. To find all our past episodes, links to our social media, links to our Patreon, which for as little as $3 a month, you can get bonus content, ad-free episodes a day early. You can occasionally win prizes, all that stuff. Go to our website. It's afandomthingpod.com. Also, if you want to be a potential interview guest, if you want to be a potential panelist, if you're another podcaster, or you just have lots of thoughts on things, please feel free to reach out to us via our website. Once again, it's afandomthingpod.com. We have a contact us button there as well. And on Friday's episode, I don't know what Carla is going to be bringing to the table. Carla doesn't know what I'm bringing to the table. But we are going to surprise each other with our comedy. Well, not our comedy, but with a comedy movie.
Sign up episode, everybody.
We're just going to tell jokes.
Why did the chicken cross the road, Erin?
Why?
I don't know. Go ask the chicken.
So until next time, remember, it's a fandom thing. Black Lives Matter, stop Asian hate, and free Palestine.